Hey guys, welcome back to Ben & Brewing's channel. My name is Brian. If you haven't been here before, we do tutorials, product reviews, and we have a live chat feature on our website to help you through your Brew Day 911s. In today's video, we're talking about tap line cleaning. We're going to cover a deep cleaning method that you should be doing periodically and a maintenance method that you can do that'll hopefully save you a little bit of time, keeping those tap lines nice and clean and fresh for that wonderful beer you're making. Let's get into it. All right, guys, let's talk about why it's important to clean your beer lines. Through the process of running beer through your beer lines, it can build up things that are just kind of inherent in the beer itself. There's beer stone, which is a buildup of calcium and protein that kind of precipitates out of the beer itself and can line your beer lines. Yeast can sometimes take hold in the soil that's in there, the grime and things. And sometimes you can get bacteria and things in there as well if you're not keeping up on the cleaning itself. It's important to do that because if you don't, you're gonna get off flavors in your finished beer. And you spend so much time making that beer that you really don't wanna be ruining it in the last leg of its journey to your glass by running it through a dirty beer line. The cleaning process really isn't that difficult as long as you're staying on top of it. If you're not, the buildup can get so severe that you have to rely on harsher chemicals and acids to really strip that stuff out. In some cases, it gets so bad that you just have to replace the beer line. With some of the Kegerator setups, that's not that big of a deal. You just replace the line and move on, and it's really not that expensive. If you've got a longer beer line, or it's running through a Kegerator, or it's insulated, that can be a little bit more time consuming and a little bit more costly. And in the long run, just keep your beer lines clean and your beer will thank you for it, along with all the people that are drinking it. So the question also becomes, how often should I be cleaning my beer lines? A lot of the professionals will do it once every 2 weeks, and they're also pushing out a lot of beer. For us, we usually will do what we call a maintenance cleaning once a month, and we'll talk about that and how it can save you just a little bit of time with your regular cleaning. And then once every 6 months, we go through and do an actual deep cleaning of our tap lines, which takes a little bit more time with it, but only doing it every 6 months really makes sure that everything on that beer line is taken care of. There are 3 important things to keep in mind when we're talking about cleaning: time, temperature, and then mechanical action. So from a time standpoint, when you're cleaning your tap lines, if you're letting the chemical just sit in the lines, you want to let it sit for about 20 minutes or so. And that allows the chemical time to chew through the crud that's in there. If you're able to recirculate it or constantly have it flowing through your tap lines, that counts as mechanical action, which will make the chemical work better. And so you really only need to let it rest for, or recirculate for 15 minutes. Depending on the severity of how bad your beer lines are. The third component that I mentioned is temperature. So the hotter you are running your chemical through, the better it actually works, but you really need to be careful with how hot. So generally, the hotter the temperature you use, the more efficient and better the chemical works. But you need to be careful with your tap lines because they are either plastic or vinyl hoses depending on what you're using. So generally, 80 to 120 degrees is sufficient, with kind of the hotter end there being a good range for the chemical to really work, but you don't need it to be super hot or boiling because your beer lines could fail or you could have other issues. So just be careful when it comes to temperature. The hotter the temperature, usually the less time you have to recirculate and the less chemical that you need to use. All right, so the tools that you need to do your tap line cleaning, actually you don't need a whole lot. For your basic systems, you're gonna need a faucet wrench. These are important for taking your faucets off so that you can go ahead and clean them. You're definitely gonna need to invest in a decent quality or good quality tap brush, and this helps really scrub out the insides of your faucets and things. And then for your regular maintenance cleaning, a beer line cleaner of your choice. Any sort of alkaline cleaner like this will work. Some people use powder brewery wash, which is good, but it's always better to use what a chemical has been designed for versus something that's really more for the brew house. This is really more focused on the beer stone removal. For more of the aggressive cleaning or more of the non-maintenance, really kind of getting in there deep, we like to use an acidic cleaner to kind of balance out the alkali cleaner, and this is a beer stone remover by 5 Star Chemical. For the larger systems, to kind of make things a little bit easier, and you'll see that here in a moment, we use a 1/4 inch flare fitting and a couple of these faucet adapters so that we can recirculate through our entire tap system. If you have a 1 or 2 tap system, the extra things that I mentioned aren't really necessary. For us, we've got a 6 tap system. This is a huge time saver. The first and most important step before cleaning your tap lines is to go ahead and pour yourself a pint. This accomplishes the goal of making sure you don't get thirsty while cleaning, as well as giving yourself a point of reference to see how the post-cleaning beer will taste. Next, we want to unhook the beer lines from your kegs. Place a couple of towels in a bowl nearby to catch any drips that get away from you. Then remove your keg couplers by either depressing the compression fitting or unscrewing them. If you have barb fittings, this can be a bit more difficult, but there are options and tools you can use to plug into your keg coupler to depress the plunger so that you don't have to remove your keg couplers. Now you are ready to remove your faucets. Remove your tap handles and put them aside. Place a towel under the faucets to catch any drips as you unhook your faucets. Open the taps to let the beer run down the lines and into the bowl you placed on the floor. Take your faucet wrench and unscrew the beer shanks. Remember, for these, it's lefty-tighty and righty-loosey. Little goofy, I know. Once the lines have been drained, take your bowl, keg connectors, and faucets over to the sink. Give the faucets and keg couplers a rinse in the sink, making sure to depress the inner spring of the coupler to ensure water flows and flushes them out. For more details on how to completely disassemble your faucets and keg couplers, see our video linked below. Fill up your bowl with the hot tap water and drop in your faucets and keg couplers and add a small amount of beer line cleaner. Put these aside to soak. Next, take your hand pump and fill with hot tap water. Remember to keep the temperature between 80 and 120 degrees. Now add your acid line cleaner and put your pump aside for just a moment. Grab your bowl of parts and with the brush gently clean the insides of the faucets to loosen any gunk buildup and put aside again to allow to soak. Head back to the kegerator with your pump full of acid line cleaner and a second bowl. Attach your pump to one of the faucet shanks. Don't forget to put the washer in place. Trust me, I've done this too many times, missed it too many times, and made a big mess. Tighten down using the faucet wrench. You don't have to tighten it very tight though. Give the system a few gentle pumps to flush the line and to fill with cleaning solution. Keep the ends of the beer line submerged in liquid to ensure the cleaner stays in the beer line. Between the ends of the line being under solution and the resistance of the beer line, the solution will stay in place. Remove the pump from the first tap and attach it to the next, keeping your first tap line submerged to allow the chemical to sit and not run out. Repeat this process on your remaining tap lines and let the chemicals work for a minimum of 20 minutes. Unhook your pump and drain any excess chemical from the lines. You don't want too much acid left over in the lines, as this could neutralize the alkali cleaner that's going to be coming up in the next step. Take your pump and bowl to the sink and rinse well to remove the acid cleaner. Once again, fill the pump with hot water and now add your beer line cleaner. If your faucets are really dirty, take this opportunity to scrub them again now that they have soaked and then rinse and dry. If they're really not too bad, you don't need to scrub them again, just give them a good old rinse. Take just a moment to stop and admire their stainless and chrome splendor. Repeat the steps as before, but this time using the beer line cleaner. Once again, let the chemical rest in the beer lines for a minimum of 20 minutes. Once again, rinse out your pump to remove any beer line cleaner residue. Next, fill the pump with hot tap water, but this time for the rinse step. Take your pump back to your kegerator, hook it up as before, and gently run the rinse water through your beer lines until all the chemicals have been flushed out. Go ahead and reconnect your keg couplers. Next, reinstall your faucets, making sure they are seated correctly, then snugly tighten them using your faucet wrench. Once again, remember, lefty-tighty, righty-loosey. Open and close the faucets a few times to make sure they are closing easily and not catching before reinstalling your tap handles. Next, hook your kegs back to the beer lines, making sure the taps are closed before connecting the kegs. Trust me, this is a step you don't want to miss. Then pour enough beer from each faucet to push out the rinse water that might still be in the beer lines. Next, pour a small sample and do a quick quality check. For some of the larger systems with multiple taps, it's much faster to hook all of the beer lines together in a loop and then recirculate the cleaner through the beer lines. The first step is to unhook all of your beer lines from the keg and organize them in tap order. This makes it easier in the following steps to hook them in the correct order. Open up all your taps to catch any beer that's sitting in your faucets before finally removing them all. Next, hook up your first tap with the faucet adapter that's connected to your chemical. Then hook the next faucet adapter in series to its neighbor and continue until all have been hooked up. The last faucet is simply a drain that runs the cleaner back to the pump reservoir. If you have an odd number of taps, you will need to change this configuration slightly. Since we have an even number of taps, this works perfectly for us. Now let's focus on the keg couplers. Unscrew or remove each keg coupler, making sure you have a towel or a bowl handy to catch the drips as you work. Next, attach each beer line to its neighbor using the 1/4 inch flare connections. This creates a long beer line that your chemical will run through right after the other. Add your chemical to your pump reservoir and turn it on. Check for leaks and tighten if necessary as the cleaner runs through your lines. Since we're recirculating the cleaner, our minimum runtime is 15 minutes. Once your acid line cleaner cycle is complete, dump out your pump reservoir and fill with clean hot water. Run this fresh water through your lines just long enough to flush the acid through and discard the runoff. Then add your beer line cleaner to the bucket and recirculate for 15 minutes. Once the beer line cleaner cycle is complete, flush clean water through your system and catch the runoff in another container to toss. Now it's finally time to reassemble your tap system. Start by reattaching your keg couplers to your beer lines. Unhook your faucet shank hoses and reconnect your faucets now that they're cleaned and scrubbed. Go ahead and tighten and square up your faucets. Make sure that your tap faucets are closed. Now you can go ahead and start hooking up your kegs. Make sure you check for leaks as you do so, and make sure your faucets aren't leaking as well. All right guys, remember how I talked about that maintenance method that you can do for your tap line cleaning that'll save you some time? It's actually very simple. Instead of removing your faucets every single time that you clean it and attaching those adapters, leave your faucets in place. Open the tap lines and then use like a 1/2 inch in diameter silicone tubing, that's what we use, and basically you daisy chain it together using that. So you put it on one faucet, you put it to the next faucet, make sure your faucet taps are open, and then run your cleaning fluid through it. For those of you that are concerned about beer lines causing infections in your beer, again, as long as they are clean and sanitary, it's not an issue. And here's something to keep in mind as well. As brewers, we are so concerned with infection, as we should be, when that beer is just chilled down out of the boil, right? And we gotta make sure everything is clean. We pitch the yeast, we seal it, we protect it. The thing to remember is that yeast create an environment which is beneficial to them and hostile to anything else wild that might be floating around and might fall in there and infect it and cause issues. So once you get your finished beer, the odds of it becoming infected go way down compared to when you first pitch the yeast. So it's less likely to get something in there, which is less concerning on the finished product when you have your clean beer lines. This may be a bit controversial, but we actually don't sanitize our beer lines when we're finished. As long as your beer lines are clean, meaning there's no soil or residue that's in there that will capture things or allow the growth of bacteria and yeast, we really don't feel like it's necessary to sanitize. You're running beer through the lines, which is flushing everything through anyway. Nothing can take hold, nothing can really infect it. So we don't sanitize our beer lines, which I know is kind of weird sounding, but we're not mad at people if they do. If you feel that it makes a difference and it's something that you don't want to take a chance on, especially as much time as you spent making your beer, go ahead and do it. It doesn't hurt anything. For us, we don't find that step to be really necessary as long as we're cleaning it properly and staying up on the cleaning as it should be. Hey guys, thank you for watching our tap line cleaning video. If it brought you some value, please like and subscribe. We really appreciate that. Also check out our other videos linked above for other tutorials and product reviews. Catch you later, my friends.